John is both one of the top investigative reporters around. He's also, I think, you're the interface between the Trump and the National Archives. Tell us about this blockbuster article last night. Walk us through what's the reality here, John.
Well, listen, when the raid occurred, the Biden White House acted like they didn't know what was going on. They were just as surprised as the rest of the American public. But the truth of the matter is the Biden White House, its general counsel's office, Joe Biden himself was at the ignition point of this investigation. Think about that. The man who defeated Trump in 2020 and expects to potentially run against him in 2024 was involved in sicking the FBI on the leader of the political opposition party. He did it through multiple things. First, the White House counsel's office authorized the National Archives to send information they had gotten in the boxes that Trump voluntarily returned to the archives and send it to the FBI. That launches a criminal investigation. They then short-circuit the process. President Trump would have had the right, if he had gotten a grand jury subpoena, to go to court and say, I have executive privilege, I might have declassified these documents, whatever arguments he was going to make. Behind the scenes, the Justice Department, the FBI, the National Archives, and President Biden work to short-circuit the ability of the president to have any legal privilege, to make any executive privilege over these documents, and instead basically say there's no challenge. You can have the documents, you can go through them without a concern for executive privilege. The current president waives the executive privilege of the past president. That is what's going on here. A two-headed effort by the Biden administration to try to get the former president under criminal investigation.
Hang on a second. This is why this thing's so blockbuster. And this is why when the story came out, Kyle Cheney and these guys are all over taking dictation from the Justice Department because they know they got a problem. You're telling me, but I thought I thought Merrick Garland went up there. I thought they said categorically Joe Biden in the White House knows nothing about this. They have no earthly idea what's going on. Merrick Garland's looked the American people in the eye. This is all me. So what documents are you pointing to? Because this is next level. What specifically? Walk us through your chain of custody of how you prove that they're lying.
Yeah, so these are letters that went on between the president's lawyer and the archives and the Justice Department, the White House and the Justice Department. There's a series of email exchanges and letters that go on between mid-April to May 8th, I believe it is the end date, when at that day the Biden White House says it's over, we're piercing privilege, we're giving the documents to the FBI, tough luck, Donald Trump. And then 2 days later, a grand jury is impaneled in Washington. Grand jury subpoenas are issued 2 weeks later to the president. A visit to the president's home in Mar-a-Lago occurs June 3rd. And by August 8th, we now know the famous raid with a search warrant. There's an escalation driven by the Biden White House against its likely rival in 2024. And I think most Americans assume, hey, the normal process would have been for just like they did with Nixon. The normal process, go to the courts, let the president fight this out, the former president, make his executive privilege claim, let the courts balance it and make a decision, and then decide, were these documents properly declassified, are they personal records, are they covered by executive privilege? The FBI and the Justice Department jumped the fence on that. They short-circuited that process, got Joe Biden to wave a magic wand and say, Donald Trump can't have any of those legal arguments, go ahead and take the documents and start an investigation. I think most Americans are going to be troubled to find out the current president sicking the FBI on the former president. And I think that's the way these documents read when you look at it.
Let's go back. I just want to make sure. Let's go back and do that one more time about when they went to the FBI, knowingly went to the FBI. That was after the January thing. That was in mid-April, you said?
Yeah, in mid-April there's a discussion. The FBI hears from the National Archives that they got the boxes. They want to see what's in the boxes. The archives goes to the Biden White House and say, you referee this, and the Biden White House says, give it to them. Then the Trump organization calls, his lawyers, President Trump's lawyers call and say, hey, there might be privileged materials in this. Let's have some time and go through this. Let's do this in a disciplined process. And within a few days of those conversations going on, the National Archives back and said, we don't care about your privilege claims. We're piercing it because President Biden told us we could if we wanted to, and the FBI can have at it. And that starts the grand jury portion of this investigation. Joe Biden ignites the grand jury investigation by waiving the privilege and authorizing the documents to be shipped. This is a chilling potential a fact for not only former presidents, but any future president. If any future president knows that the guy who beats him at the polls or succeeds him at the polls can then turn around and release all the documents that a prior president might have considered privileged because he got important advice to do his job, who's going to put anything on paper? Who's going to want to get that advice knowing that could happen? And just think about this. In the scenario that Joe Biden has now authorized with Donald Trump, the next Republican president can release all the fast and furious documents of Barack Obama, including those they went to executive privilege claim. And by the way, no one ever got convicted. The next president could release all of Vice President Joe Biden's dealings with Hunter Biden and his friends that might be covered by privilege. This opens up a Pandora's box. And if a Republican president had done it, Democrats and Kyle Cheney would be going nuts. But because it's Donald Trump, they're finding other things to write about today than the real news here. A current president waived a former president's privilege.
This also makes it, but nobody could figure out why the archives thing about no executive privilege, why it was going to be a big deal. Now you know why. Behind the scenes, they were weaponizing this immediately. They said, turn it over to the FBI.
Yeah.
They criminalized it immediately. This is what this illegitimate regime scumbags are. John Solomon, what's your social media? How do people get to you? Because today you'll be the guy that's most watched throughout the world.
Okay. Yeah. Jay Solomon Reports on all platforms, from Truth and Getter to Twitter and Facebook. And we'll have some more facts come out. Listen, this extends to the January 6th investigation. We know there was a waiver of privilege there as well. And I think there are some really serious questions about what's been going on behind the scenes between the FBI, the Justice Department, and the Biden White House. You don't normally see a White House meddling in a federal criminal investigation. This is going to be a big story that has a lot more questions to be answered.